Hi, wonderful people. Thank you so much for being here. It's Mark here from Not Defining. This is the place where we talk about sex, gender, love, relationships, self-confidence, and so much more, delving deep so that you can better understand yourself however you define. So today I'm going to be running down some of the differences that I see in men and women. I'm a bisexual man, and so hopefully I have a bit of a good perspective to share. Disclaimer, I'm talking about men and women in general. Some of these will refer to kind of cis men or cis women or people with different types of bodies. But in general, I just want to talk about men and women. So it applies to everybody. The first thing that I would say as a bisexual person is that the older I grow and the more experiences I have, the more that I learn, I realize there aren't that many differences between men and women. When I was young, I used to think, oh, men and women are these two really different things, because that's kind of what we're taught, isn't it? But the more and more I learn, the more I realize that, for example, on a physical level, male and female bodies are on a spectrum. Yeah, they're not a binary. We are all the same gender in the womb. And then the hormones just kind of push us to one side or the other. Our physical bodies are just derivatives of the same thing. They're just kind of further to that side or further to that side. And so when it comes to physical sensation, we're kind of the same. It's just that we might be a bit more of this, a bit more of that. Then, of course, the more people that I meet and the more I get to understand myself, I realize that on a personal level, psychologically, there is just so much diversity, and you cannot say that man is like this, woman is like that. So the more I go along, the more I realize we're all the same. The second thing I would say is that oftentimes women are more diverse in the kind of way that they experience things and the kind of way of thinking about themselves, their bodies, their gender, sex, and love, and relationships, and so on. I think a lot of the time in society, there's more scope and more permission for women to kind of be free a little bit. If you think about, women can wear different kinds of clothes like trousers or boots or whatever, or dresses or whatever, short hair, long hair. Whereas for men, there are still all those restrictions. I think male sexuality has been policed a lot more than women's sexuality. And so I find that women are often, in general, a bit more comfortable in themselves and in their diversity, which is something I love about women. By the way, if you're thinking about your gender or where you fit on the spectrum, please hit the subscribe button. We've got loads of videos coming out. I would love to have you here. The next thing I would say is that in terms of bodies, people who have traditionally male bodies tend to be less sensitive. Okay, so it's not an exact science, but women's bodies are so sensitive, and there are so many ways in which you can interact with a woman's body that make amazing, adventurous, completely magical experiences. For men, often there are like set parts of the body that they kind of go to. It's more like kind of direct, whereas with a woman, what I love so much is like when you're having a sexual or sensual experience, it's such a psychological, such a kind of mental process for her. Like she will go off into another world, right? A guy is with you in the room, whereas a woman is just like in her own world. She can almost like feel orgasm and feel pleasure from the tiniest touch of her neck, or like the smallest like touch of her hand or her leg, or do you know what I mean? So like I absolutely love exploring a woman's body, and having the permission to do that is something so amazing that is kind of just a bit different with guys. I don't know if it's because I have a male body that it's more of a mystery to me, but let me know if you have comments, whatever your gender is. The next thing I would say is that I tend to be romantically attracted to women and romantically attracted to men, but then with men, there's more chance of going in the friend zone. I think that the friend zone, or what we would describe as platonic attraction, tends to build with men a lot, because traditionally, I guess I've been conditioned to see men as friend, yeah, and women as romantic partner. So I can have a romantic or a sexual or even a lustful attraction to a man, but there often comes a point where I'm like, you're a guy. And we get pally, and that kind of mystery, that kind of mystique, that kind of romance dissipates a little bit. So I don't know if anyone else experiences this, but that tends to happen with me. The next difference that I see often is in terms of women or people who menstruate. That menstrual process is actually a really important part of life, and it's something that people who don't have to deal with. We tend in society, I think, to kind of brush it under the carpet, and I didn't realize, like, until I was a bit older, just how important that whole process, that whole cycle is. And we can do one of two things. We can either ignore it, yeah, particularly as men, we can just like pretend that, time of the month, whatever, or we can actually learn about it and honor it and see women as these amazing creatures who actually have this process which is fundamental to life. And I think that understanding that is key to understanding like a lot of femininity. And for me, it has like massively grown my attraction to women by just kind of delving into that and honoring it. So those are like two very different things. I would also say that men as well aren't off free from being a kind of subjected to their hormonal cycles. This is something people don't talk about a lot. I mean, men's testosterone and our sex drive and our kind of dominance, our aggression and so on is such a huge issue, and we are completely a slave to it. You know, we will do crazy things. We will have crazy mood swings. We will be almost like impossible to control, or even to control ourselves when we have hormonal drives. And any person with, testosterone in their body will understand what that's like. So I think it's two different kinds of hormonal structures. But I love to just honor and just accept like both of them. And, it's part of what makes us human. The next thing I would say, particularly about kind of dating with men and stuff like that, is that unfortunately there's a lot of trauma in the male LGBT community. I think because of what we've been subjected to and so on, we often don't get the chance to form healthy bonds or to learn about healthy relationships, healthy sex, that kind of thing. And so I find that, in that space, there's a lot of toxicity, there's a lot of trauma bonds, there's a lot of real pain, casual sex and kind of difficult relationships and so on. And I think that's just a feature of kind of dating men. When you're dating women, it's more kind of the heteronormative side of things, and that comes with its own barriers. But I just perceive those two kind of differences there. So with women, oftentimes, it's either kind of gay men or straight women as a bi person. And so you don't actually share your orientation with that person. I love kind of dating people who are queer or bi or somewhere on the spectrum. Not always, but, I prefer that because there's a level of understanding and connection that you really can't have with kind of, I guess, monosexual people. That's just me. When you are dating a kind of straight person, not only are you not bi or queer, but you're also not LGBT. And so there's a huge gap in understanding there. Now, of course, there are many, many straight people who are incredible allies and who are absolutely fine, but that's just a kind of difference that I see. You've got to kind of just like fit yourself into either the straight world or the gay world. And both of them come with their own challenges. The next thing I would say about men is that, particularly when you're kind of interacting physically, like I feel a little bit more confident and direct with men. Normally you can be a little bit more rough, you can be a little bit more kind of firm. I think maybe because you're more likely to be on a physical parity in terms of your strength. And so there's less worry there. Also, you know, you probably like understand their body more. Like I have a similar body, it works in a similar way. So we know what's going on and like we could just be a bit more direct. With women, oftentimes it's very important to me that you kind of check that she is feeling comfortable, check that you're not overstepping, check that there is full consent. Like all of these things are really, really important and for good reason. But it just means that I will kind of often behave a little bit differently when it comes to interaction with a man or a woman. The next thing is, it tends to be easier to actually get with men than it is with women. I don't know if other people have kind of noticed this, but if I wanted to, get with a guy, I could do it in a matter of minutes. There are apps that you can just go, like, I don't know what it is about men, but we're just like crazy. Yeah. So if you want to get with a guy, not a problem. Staying with a guy and having a relationship with a guy, much more difficult. With women, I think it tends to be more difficult at the start, but it's easier to form lasting relationships. So this is something that I've heard a lot of people talk about. Obviously, it's not everyone, but it can often happen. Like you might actually prefer to be with women, but you find yourself dating men just because it's easier. And particularly with a lot of straight women not wanting to date bi men, it could be extra difficult for us queer men to actually find a female partner. So it doesn't necessarily mean you prefer one or the other. It might just be more easily available to you. And those are some of my differences between men and women. I'd love to know what you think. Do you have other differences? Please write in the comments. Do you have questions about these? I mean, just let me know because it's kind of fun to talk about and we don't often get to talk about it. If you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button and the bell for notifications so you never miss a video. If you would like to know more about what I like about women or men in more detail, then check these videos coming up where I delve a little more. I will see you very soon. Bye for now.